Amazing Fantasy 15, first published in 1962, would introduce the world to Spider-Man. And for the last 60 years or so, Spider-Man's been entertaining us to the tune of nearly $9 trillion based on just live action and animated films alone. So suffice to say, Spider-Man's going to be here for a long time. Now, last year when I was working on the video comparing these three figures and like the differences between cost and the articulation, accessories, things like that, I also found out that Mezco was making their own classic Spider-Man. Now, the issue was that the release date kept getting pushed back and I didn't have time to keep waiting for this, but here it is now. So we're going to be taking a look at the box, articulation, accessories, the whole shebang. It's going to be a deep dive. It's going to be great. And of course, we're going to be taking a look at comparison with these three as well. So stick around and we're going to get right into it. So here is our box. All current Mezcos come in a plastic bag as well. The box itself is pretty straightforward, even though the art is nice. I don't like that it's kind of just repeated on the back side. I wish that we would have had a slightly different image on the back, but even still, it's pretty cool looking that it does wrap around the way it does. So we can see the sides, we got the nice Spider-Man on there. It shows the Amazing Spider-Man right on top. And right on the bottom, we have a image of Spidey. It is nice that the Spidey and the logo right here are reflective, and then the other parts of it are matte, so that is kind of cool. Other than that, this is actually a pretty unique box, I would say, amongst the Mezco line, in that it's got all that art wrapped right all the way around, so that is pretty neat. Let's get it open. So in our box, we do have the standard product care guideline. Not much to see there. We also have this diagram that shows how to use the accessories, so that's pretty cool. And here is the figure. So this one is actually pretty intense because it actually comes in 3 stacks of stuff. So we have Spidey with the primary set of accessories. We have a secondary set of accessories. We got a bunch of webs and a bunch of hands, so that's pretty cool. And then we have what looks like to be 2 different stands and another accessory, as well as some batteries for the light up head. So just to show you, this one is not actually exactly a stand. I mean, I guess it could be, but you can actually attach the arm that actually allows it to stand up. So you could, you know, just kind of place it down and place him standing on it. But this is not, I don't think, intended to be one of these guys. But still a cool piece, and I am going to leave it out because I do like that. First things first, here is Spider-Man. And I think this looks really good. There are older Mezcos that I love the character, but I don't really like how the figure came out, because I don't like how the body is fabric and then the head is like plastic with those versions. But I think Mezco's been doing a much better job with their recent releases. Specifically, I think Spider-Man 2099 came out really well. I have that one as well, but this one looks really good. And so even though you can see that we have fabric here, all the blue is obviously fabric, but the red part on the suit is actually, I think it's a kind of vinyl that's on there, and it looks really good, and it matches the mask, you know, the head and the neck perfectly. And let's go ahead and just get right into the articulation. So starting from the bottom, our foot can go forward a bit, it can go down a bit. That's always been a bit of a thing with the Mezco figures, at least their feet have never had a lot of articulation. We can go around like that a bit. That's about it. Right here, we do have calf articulation, so you can spin that. The knee appears to be a double joint, and it definitely is. We could definitely get foot to butt, and that's awesome. Our hip, we can come up very easily, no problem doing that. We can come out just as easily, and that worked out really well. So we have quite a bit of range, and I'm pretty sure that we have hip rotation as well. Yeah, we have a bit of that in there, so that's great. Coming up to our waist, we can turn like that, as you can see. We can get some ab crunch. You see that the costume does wrinkle up a bit, but that's obviously actually fairly realistic. Anyway, moving up to our arms, we can come up, we can, you know, do all that kind of typical rotation that we would expect. We have some bicep swivel, but that's always going to be a little bit tricky with cloth figures because the costume moves with it. And then we have double jointed elbows, so we can basically get fist to shoulder, and that's pretty great. So this is unlike this will not articulate. That's okay, I wasn't expecting it to necessarily. And then we have some typical articulation at our wrists. So the hand can obviously spin the whole way around. And then that ball joint allows us to come up like that if we really wanted to. Our head, of course, we have the neck articulation down there. And then the head itself is on a ball joint. And that looks great. So I think that's some great articulation. That's, I think, what we're looking to get out of a Spider-Man character. He's not going to be nearly as bulky as, you know, Batman and Superman, so he can do quite a bit. Now, as far as the costume itself and the design, I think it looks really nice. I'm not sure if this is intending to be like the original Amazing Spider-Man costume, because we obviously don't have the underarm webbing, and the spider is actually a little bit different from how it looks in the actual Amazing Spider-Man issue 1. But otherwise, I think it's a great looking, just classic Spider-Man. If this is supposed to be a particular costume from a certain artist and you know that, then definitely let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, the back spider, it does look a little bit kind of dated in a sense, which is why I feel like this is intended to be a bit of an older design style. But that looks great. If you're unfamiliar with Mezcos, they do have to stitch them this way to get them on. So while some people probably won't like that, this is really kind of the only way to do it until somebody else figures out a better way. I like this head. I like the slightly squinty look. To me, it's very expressive that it looks like that. And here is another head, and I think the head that many people would probably put on as opposed to the default one that it comes with. So let's go ahead and swap that out now. And there it is, and that looks so good. I'm super happy with that. Again, there's our original head. And what's fun is that we also have this alternate head that actually lights up. I'll show that off in just a second, because I do want to show our civilian Peter Parker head. And that's a pretty nice looking head. Here's how it looks on the body. And he even comes with a pair of glasses, and those actually fit pretty well. And it's kind of awesome that the lenses are actually real lenses, because his eyes look a little bit bigger than they should, because they are magnified a bit. And you can see that they fit over the ears just fine. So those are super fun to have. And here is our final head with his classic spider sense tingle, and that's really cool to have. And here's how that would look on the body. That's such a cool accessory. I like that. Here's what the inside of the head that lights up looks like. You can see it's pretty straightforward. Here are the electronics. There's a switch, and it comes with this tiny little guide to help you click the switch once it's all put back together. There it is with the batteries on and the switch turned on. Just gonna go right back in here, deep down in, and that's it. And you can see how it lights up. And there's a better shot of how the lights look when they are on. And here's how it looks in total darkness. It's a little washed out. You can kind of see how it glows even through like the head itself. And so, I mean, that might bother some people. I'm not really that bothered by it. I think it looks really cool. Now, one of the things about this costume is that the vinyl, while it looks nice, one of the complaints that I've already seen online is how it looks once you started actually posing it. So you can kind of see that there are horizontal lines on the shoulder, and that's because I had raised it up like this and brought it back down, and that's why you can see lines now. So if we look at the other side, which I've not articulated at all, the lines aren't quite there. I mean, they're kind of there, but they're not really as like accentuated as they are over here now because I did that articulation. So that's a thing to consider if you are interested in this Spider-Man. I'm not that bothered by it right now, at least, but we'll see as time goes on. I kind of wonder if a bit of like warm water might kind of soften that out again, because it actually does kind of like look white from a distance, so you can kind of see that. So that is a little troublesome actually, but I guess we will see how it goes. So I do want to mention that I got this from a small company based out of Vegas called Mallfish Collectibles. So they've been around for 2016 or so, and they do have an online store that you should definitely check out. I'll link that down below. This isn't sponsored by them, but I do want to plug them because I love small businesses and I want to see them succeed. So a big shout out to Mallfish Collectibles for getting this shit to me so quickly. I ordered this, I think, a week ago, and it showed up today. It shipped in like 3 or 4 days. Now, I know I'm pretty close to Vegas, but even still, That's really fast. This is actually even getting to my hands before people that pre-ordered from Mezco directly. So if you're in the market for some Mezco figures, definitely check out Mallfish Collectibles. Now with that said, let's look at some accessories. So he's got fists already. So starting from the top, we've got these gripping hands. They actually kind of look like they're choking hands, like he might grip somebody by the neck and choke them. Then we've got these open, loose hands. We've got these open reaching hands. We've got more open / sort of gripping hands. These ones are definitely gripping hands as well. They're kind of hard to see in the plastic, but you can see the thumb right there. These ones are crawling hands, so those are really neat because you can tell that they're kind of like this. So that's for crawling. We've got, of course, the web hands. And then we've got a thumbs up and a pointing finger. So that's awesome. That's a great selection of hands to have. Very happy with that. We do have an additional head accessory, and this is the spider sense going off. So this is designed to actually go into the standing post, and then you would just kind of move it so that it's right behind his head. I do kind of wish that this was actually something that could attach to the head, but I don't know how they would do that without needing to use some kind of adhesive or a weird piece that might potentially like scratch the plastic of the head. So this is a pretty good compromise. I do wish that maybe this came in another color, like as in a few different colors. Black is a good one by default, but I think I'm used to kind of seeing it in like yellow, or at least my brain thinks that I should be seeing it in yellow. So either way, you kind of can't not have this accessory for Spider-Man. Speaking of accessories, we also have this mask that he can hold, which is neat to have, and it'll hang off of something like maybe a trash can or something like that if you want it. We also get a Daily Bugle newspaper. Can't be opened up, but we do have some print on there. At best, you can see the spider saves city again. You can see this headline here, but the actual text of the article is just too small to actually be seen. Same as the front. We have two different styles of lanyard for his camera, because in one style, it can just hang off his neck, and the other style would be as if he's actually taking a picture with it. And so you can see that the sides will just go right into the side of the camera like that. So it's neat. We also get this guy, which doesn't look like much until you realize that it's the tracker for his spider tracer. So this is a super fun accessory to have. I'm not sure if we've ever had them before in other 12-inch scale form, but these are really cool. And they're all exactly the same, so not much to see there otherwise. You can see a little bit of detail in that abdomen. Other than that, it's really just, you know, kind of the legs and the body. And now for our web accessories. So the first one I want to show is in that third layer, and this is a web shield. And I really like this, and I like a lot of the web accessories because in the comic books, they always say that he can create different things from his webbing, but in the movies, we really just see him use it as just a string to grab onto things or to grab people. So it's really cool to see this shield. And you can see that it would just go right through his arm. This loop does appear to be a little bit bigger than this one, so I think it is supposed to go in a particular direction. So here's how it might look. We also get this nice webbed head splat kind of thing where it would wrap around a head. Now, obviously, he's not going to have it wrapped around his own head, so this would be good for another character, like maybe the Green Goblin that hasn't come out yet, but I have pre-ordered. One of my favorite web accessories is this web backpack. We see it a lot in the comic books, so it's really cool to see this as an accessory here. And it's not super special in regards of it being able to do anything, but it's such a cool mold that I really like it. Here's how it can look attached to the body. You just slip it right through the arms, and it's on. So that's cool. We've got this straight web line, which I think this is supposed to be something like as if you were holding it to swing on it. So you would see one end and not the other necessarily as he's holding onto it to swing around. Here's our next web accessory. You can see that the end of it is a little bit kind of balled up looking. So this one is actually bendable, so you can articulate it how you want. That's a neat accessory. I think this might be something that you could use to wrap up like an enemy or something like that. This is one that actually goes on the wrist, as you can see from there. And then this end would be wrapped around something, most likely the body of one of his foes. Here's another one that would attach to the wrist so that he can be firing his web. And I'll be taking pictures of these and putting them on my Instagram, so you should probably follow me over there if you want to see how these look on him. And last but not least, we have this swinging web line, which is part of the accessory of this big guy right here. And this one I am really excited about because this is where you would make a web parachute, which he uses reasonably frequently in the comic books. And so it's really fun to see in toy form here. And it can double as a hammock if you really wanted to, so that's funny. And that's the gist of the accessories. So let's look at how he compares to some other figures. And here we are with a bunch of different Spider-Man. So these are Marvel Legends over here. These guys retail for about $19.99 brand new. This is our Marvel Selects. I believe this one was $29.99. And this is our MFish Spider-Man, which retails for $94.99, I believe. And so we have a big range of different figures and pricing. So the reason why we look at these three is because I think most people associate these colors with being the classic Spider-Man. I brought out this one since this is probably my favorite Legends Spider-Man. And so what's interesting is that even though I think people think of that lighter blue as like the classic blue, this one is quite a bit darker, and so that's an interesting thing to note. I do like the web lines are pretty tight. There's a lot of them in there compared to this one and this one. With the other three, all of the web lines are there's a bunch of them, so that's nice if that's the style of Spider-Man that you are wanting to have. As far as articulation goes, check out my video for the full range of articulation for these three guys. But basically, the Selects one has the worst articulation of all of them. And then the Legends and the MFish are actually pretty close, with the MFish just edging it out by just a little bit. So since the MFish one is the one that has the most articulation out of the other two, then we're going to use that as a comparison. And so you can see that both can get into fully flat sitting positions. This is as far over as that they can bend. They're pretty close. I think MFish wins by just a margin as well. However, with the back articulation, you can see that the MFish can bend quite a bit more back than our Mezco Spider-Man can. One important point of articulation that I do actually want to look at is how far his head can point up because of the crawling position that Spider-Man might be in. So we'll start with the MFish. That's about as far up as he can get, a pretty decent amount, but I think it could be a little bit more. With our Select, it actually comes up quite a good amount. Our Renew Your Vows is pretty decent, could be a little bit better. The Cell Shaded is actually pretty good. I think that's actually probably the best of the bunch so far. It's like directly up. And then finally, the Mezco one actually is really good too. That's probably as good, or maybe just a little bit worse than the Legends one, but not by much. So that's still pretty solid for that crawling pose. You can see that the height are pretty much identical between the Mezco and the MFish, as well as our Cell Shaded Spidey. But our Renew Your Vow Spidey is actually a little bit taller. That's actually kind of surprising, but cool. And of course, the Select Spidey is going to be taller since it is 7-inch scale anyway. Here are three civilian heads. We have the Marvel Legends Renew Your Vows on the left. In the middle, we have the Marvel Selects, and then the right, we have the Mezco Spider-Man. I think I like the Legends one the most. Maybe that's because I'm most used to it, but I think it has a little bit more personality. The Mezco one is a little plain, even though it's good looking. His personality doesn't really shine the way that it actually shows in both the Selects and the Legends version. But overall, it still looks good. And if anything, is still a better representation of his younger self rather than the other two. With these two being kind of the more established Spider-Man and this one being kind of the younger, still getting his bearings on Peter Parker. And in case anyone's interested, you can see just how different the bodies are that Mezco's using between this Justice League Batman and this new Spider-Man. So Batman is obviously quite a bit bigger, bulkier. He's a much bigger character. And Spider-Man is much more slender, more agile, and so doesn't have that same level of muscle that we see with Batman. I don't think that's a bad thing. I do think Spider-Man should be the slender body. And I do believe that the articulation is just a little bit better on the smaller body than on the bulkier body. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it came out. I think the only concern I have at this point is kind of the crinkling that happens with the vinyl when you do articulate. So I think we're going to see that most with the shoulders, but really I think that's really the only place, since that's the part that will get stretched the most. Like I said, I did pre-order the Green Goblin, so subscribe if you do want to see how these two characters stack up once he comes out. And otherwise, you should check out the full comparison of those three Spider-Man right here.